Hey everybody, welcome to Browns Thoughts here on the Off the Mic Sports Network. A week 2 edition of the show. My take on the NFL from a Browns perspective, from a Browns fan. Don't worry, I am going to get into the rest of the NFL. I am a Browns fan. For those new and old subscribers, I'll give you the little basic rundown of it. I've been a Browns fan basically my entire life. And for 25 years since they came back in 1999, this franchise is, to put it delicately, a shit show. And you saw that in the last week, it being a shit show, because the game on Sunday last week against the Dallas Cowboys was not great. And then you have the Deshaun Watson discussion. He did not look good. Then he gets sued again, basically for rape. He's alleged to have raped another woman. So we'll see how that stuff gets sorted out. But he plays in this game against the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday. And the Browns get a big win over the Jags to avoid going to 0-2. They win 18-13. But let's get real. The Browns should have won this thing going away. They were clearly the superior team. The defense controlled this game. The defense was the best unit on the field. The offense was okay. And I'll get to that in a second, and we'll talk about Deshaun Watson. But the defense was awesome. Myles Garrett had a sack. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was all over the place. Like, it was awesome. Like, they really held their own. They held the Jacksonville. I mean, Jacksonville, like, has been a faltering team. They've lost 7 of their last 8 games, but still, like, there's some talented dudes on that team. And Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be, at least we're led to believe, a good quarterback. But we may need to have a separate discussion about, is he good or not. In regards to the Cleveland Browns, this should not have been close. 18-13, yes, they got a win. It was a road game in a tough road environment against a solid team that's a fringe playoff contender, although I think we might be overrating them a little bit. But they got the win. They got a win that they should have and needed to get. But how we got there was just painful, man. Like, it was a slog. And you wouldn't have been able to tell that. First quarter, first drive of the game, Browns get the ball off a punt, goes 16 plays, 89 yards in 9 minutes and 14 seconds. And it was Kevin Stefanski. It was a Kevin Stefanski special. This guy was in his bag, mixed between run and pass. Deshaun Watson was looking competent. They were completing passes. Jerry Jeudy was very involved in this game, and specifically on that first drive, he had a nice completion down the sideline with a toe tap for an early conversion. Like, it was big time. And I'll talk about Jerry Jeudy and some of the highlights and lowlights of this game. But from then on, they go up 7-0 after that huge drive, that nearly 90-yard drive that took 9+ minutes off the clock. And they proceeded, if you guys can do the math, they won the game 18-13. They kicked 3 field goals and had a safety at the end of the game. That's it. That's all the offense did. And yet you would not even know from looking at the internet and all of the Deshaun Watson worship that was going on the internet this afternoon, or Sunday afternoon. It was just ridiculous to me. Because let me read you his stat line. And I maybe I'm missing something, because maybe I just have higher expectations for a guy who's getting paid $230 million fully guaranteed and is only playing in his 14th game since he came to the Cleveland Browns, and the Browns traded multiple first-round picks. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. But Deshaun Watson against the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday in Week 2. 22 of 34, 186 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, throwing the ball, but he had a rushing touchdown on that said big drive to open the game, the 16-play, nearly 90-yard drive in the early going. So yeah, again, I will read this to you again. 22 of 34, 186 yards, and 1 total touchdown in this game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. What am I missing? Why are people acting like, oh, is the old Deshaun Watson finally back? Because he made one play near the end of the game where he basically escaped a bunch of Jacksonville defenders, ran around for a little bit, and completed a 5-yard pass on the sideline to Jerry Jeudy. Mind you, it meant nothing. It led to no points. It didn't lead to anything whatsoever. And yet everybody is acting like Deshaun Watson has somehow turned a corner, because he was terrible last week. It wasn't going to be hard for him to be better. And I admit he was better. But when you are getting paid the amount of money and the amount of investment that this organization has put into this guy, and now he's got another lawsuit on him, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if this pisses you off, but I am through giving this guy the benefit of the doubt. He has got to be better than this. Under 200 yards passing is not, and 1 touchdown is not going to do it. The defense bailed them out in this game. They should have scored way more than 18 points, and you heard it from me. 7 points off that first drive. They kicked 3 field goals the rest of the game. 3 field goals. They scored 9 points. They scored 5 points in the second half of this game. The defense was really the hero. And Corey Bojorquez, I can't believe I'm giving the punter credit, had one of the great punts I've ever seen in my life, punting from plus territory, which generally I don't like, but he pins Jacksonville on the 1 yard line, and it leads to a safety on the next play by Alex Rank sacking Trevor Lawrence. But if you want to sit here and tell me that Deshaun Watson was the reason the Cleveland Browns won this game, you are fucking delusional. Get your pom-poms out and stop rooting for the quarterback of this team. He is a piece of shit. And when you're getting paid the amount of money that he is, and he has been a bunch of ass for 3 seasons, it's just 14 starts in 3 years. I'm sick and tired of waiting and then people just going crazy over a fact that he made a play that he made 1,000 times when he was in Houston. Oh, the old Deshaun Watson might be back. I've been waiting for that Deshaun Watson, and it showed up a little bit in that Ravens game last year, but what the fuck are we talking about here? This guy needs to be performing way better than 200 yards passing in a game. And if you're one of these fans that says, yeah, the Browns don't win without him, guys, Joe Flacco played this Jags team and threw for 3 touchdowns and 300 yards. Don't give me that bullshit, okay? The Browns are it's evident by what happened last year. The Browns are a better team without this guy. And the only reason that they are hanging on to this guy is they are waiting for the NFL to step in, because there is language in his contract that if he's suspended, the Browns might have an out and an exit strategy to get out of this. And that was reported by Jay Glazer and a bunch of NFL media reporters. But the only reason why Deshaun Watson is currently playing and starting for the Cleveland Browns, despite all of the negativity surrounding him, is because the Browns don't want to have their pride hurt, specifically Jimmy Haslam and ownership, because they know that they made a mistake. They know that they made a mistake, and they know that there might be an exit strategy, so they want the NFL to take it out of their hands, because then they're not going to have to look bad in this situation, which I hate. But hey, if there's an exit strategy to get out of this, I hope the Browns take it, because I cannot take another minute of this guy. He consistently bails on good protection, even though the protection was not good. But if you're one of these fans in this Cleveland Browns fan base that honestly thinks that Deshaun Watson is going to be the savior of this franchise, you've been waiting. I'm done. I'm done. I'm out. I've been out for a while. And this was just another example of, the Browns getting by because they are a supremely, supremely talented and loaded roster, because Andrew Berry and the football people, Kevin Stefanski being a 2-time coach of the year, know what the fuck they're doing. And Deshaun Watson is just a figurehead for how bad this ownership group is. So stop trying to just gloat over the fact, hey, we won a game and hey, you know what? We got by. Who cares? A win's a win. And Deshaun looked okay. And maybe the old Deshaun Watson's coming back. No, he's not. I know he just turned 29. It's an old 29. The guy's been through a bunch of lawsuits. He's been out of football way too long. I'm tired of waiting. Okay. In regards to the Jags, Trevor Lawrence, we need to have a discussion about him, because Trevor Lawrence goes 14 of 30 for 220 yards. And basically, a lot of that was late in the second half, where he kind of hit a big pass to Brian Thomas, and then a lot of that stat padding came near the end of this game, where they put together a couple of drives in the late half of the third quarter, and then also in the fourth quarter, because they ended up putting up 10 points in the second half. They only put up 3 in the first half. Browns led 13-3 at the half, but 14 of 30, under 50%, 220 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, and he took 4 sacks, and he was missing throws on a regular basis. Trevor Lawrence won't get as much attention as Deshaun Watson does, but he is getting paid at a level similar to Deshaun Watson, not the same guarantees. But this team has lost 7 of 8 games, and They're paying him. He was heralded, and I saw him play in college as one of the best college prospects to ever come into the NFL. And it's getting to a point where you have to start questioning yourself and saying, is this a guy that's going to ultimately take the Jags where they want to go? Obviously, you're looking up at 15 in red in Kansas City. I just don't know if Trevor Lawrence is ever going to get to that category. So the Browns caught a break because the Jags are a mess. And Trevor Lawrence, frankly, is just not that good. And and the Browns' defense is just so fucking awesome. But, yeah, the Jags, they've got issues too. Browns got issues. They get by. They get a couple of winnable games in the next couple weeks. They get the Giants next week, and then they get the Raiders in Las Vegas. And the Raiders, let's actually go there right now, because the Raiders go to Baltimore. I think they were almost a double-digit underdog, and they win on a last-second field goal by Daniel Carlson, 26-23. Gardner Minshew throws for 276 yards. Derrick Henry has a nice game, 84 yards rushing and 1 touchdown. But the Ravens, man, they're 0-2. This is a Super Bowl contender. This was the number 1 seed and the number 1 team in the NFL last year. And they are 0-2, and it does not get any easier for Baltimore people. They have got the Dallas Cowboys at Jerry World next week, and Dallas is going to be pissed off because they got absolutely destroyed by the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. And then they've got the Buffalo Bills coming there, and the Bills are 2-0. And that's not going to be an easy proposition. And then they get Cincinnati in week 5, and the Bengals are 0-2. I will talk about that in just a second. I did not have the Baltimore Ravens being in the basement of the AFC North this early in the season. That is a shocking result. But good for Antonio Pierce. Good for Gardner Minshew. Devontae Adams has a huge game. Max Crosby, one of the best defensive players in the league. The Raiders, just a huge win, and they looked really flat against the Chargers in week 1. So that is a shocking result. Frankly, one of the more shocking results of the entire season so far. I did not have Baltimore going to 0-2. All right, keeping it in the division, let's stay in the basement, and let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals rematch of all those classic championship games. Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes. It's Chiefs-Bengals, and the Chiefs win 26-25 on a last-second field goal by Harrison Butker. You can say what you want about Harrison Butker as a human being, but that guy is one of the best kickers to ever do it. You could put them out there for a 50-yard field goal at the end of the game, and you just know it's going in. Like, he is an outstanding kicker. Patrick Mahomes was not good in this game. One of his lowest outputs on offense. He threw 2 interceptions in this game. One that was maybe the play of the year by Cam Taylor-Britt. Joe Burrow goes for 258, 2 touchdowns. Mike Gesicki got really involved. I think a weakness that we need to point out for the Kansas City Chiefs is defending tight ends, because Isaiah Likely went crazy. Mike Gesicki went crazy in this game. So if you're in fantasy and you have a tight end who's playing against the Kansas City Chiefs, start him. Giving you some fantasy advice here on Brown's Thoughts. But a lot of discussion is going to be focused on the end of this game. The Chiefs had a 4th and 16. Patrick Mahomes throws up a ball. It's incomplete, but defensive pass interference is called. And I know a lot of people have this weird narrative in their minds because Taylor Swift is, now, and Taylor Swift is now rooting for the Chiefs because she's with Travis Kelce, that the NFL is rigging games and the officials are going to step in and protect their golden goose, that is Patrick Mahomes, 3-time Super Bowl champion. Because the Chiefs are now the new Patriots. Because if you remember when the Patriots and Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, they seem to be always getting those calls. But I'm going to push back on that here in terms of the Chiefs. This was a tight game, and if you watch that play, by the letter of the law, it was a rookie safety, comes in, and he pretty much ran through the receiver in the back before the ball even got there. That is the definition of defensive pass interference. It's going to get called every single time. Just because it's the Chiefs doesn't mean, hey, they're going to swallow the whistle. Oh, we're going to forget about the rules. The rules apply to everybody, everyone. Like, that's just how it goes. So if you're complaining about that, if you're a Bengals fan, there's a lot of other reasons why you lost this game, not cashing in on opportunities. And then specifically, Jamar Chase had a play where it looked like he thought he got hip drop tackled, goes over to the referee, lets him know about it, goes back for a second portion and gets hit with an unsportsmanlike penalty. And the Bengals are able to get out of that with just a field goal. But had he not done that, who knows if they might have scored a touchdown on that drive, and this wouldn't have come down to Harrison Butker at the end. And the Chiefs would have had to score a touchdown, and they were struggling on offense in this game. So before you complain about officiating in anything, and also we need to talk about the fact that the Bengals are even at 0-2. This is their third year in a row being at 0-2. They've got a mess on their hands because Jamar Chase, in addition to having a really stupid penalty in this game, he's in a contract dispute with the Bengals, which are a poverty franchise. They don't pay their top weapons, and Jamar Chase feels like he's been misled in negotiations, and he's not going to renegotiate for a long-term contract. So all this talk about the Browns, they've been able to build a really functional roster around a bad quarterback contract. Meanwhile, the Bengals, they've got a good quarterback in Joe Burrow. Although Joe Burrow, the interesting thing about him is, I mean, can he really dig this team out of an 0-2 hole again? The AFC, at least on the wild card level, is not very good. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to be willing to buy into the Pittsburgh Steelers being, at the top of this division. But anyway, the Chiefs go to 2-0. Thrilling game, as always, between these two. Bengals have a little bit of an easier time getting to that said Ravens game in Week 5. They have got, I think they got the Panthers and the Commanders. They got the Commanders next week, and then they got the Panthers. And the Panthers are awful. So, frankly, the Bengals should be 2-2 going into that game. If they're not, then I would have a serious conversation about Zach Taylor. I mean, I've been preaching this for weeks and months on end, that I just don't think Zach Taylor's that good. But the Bengals are in a little bit of trouble, but not nearly as much trouble as the Ravens are. Meanwhile, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't get this whatsoever. Let's put this into context. The Pittsburgh Steelers have played 8 quarters of football. They played 2 games. They've scored 1 touchdown. 1. And they are 2-0. Justin Fields has been okay. I mean, he threw for like 100 yards. He had a touchdown to the backup tight end, Darnell Washington. But let's get real, guys. They win 13-6 at Denver. Denver's got a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, who I like a lot. I covered him when he was at Oregon. But Bo Nix is a rookie quarterback who got drafted a little bit higher than he was supposed to. He threw a really bad red zone interception, and Sean Payton's game management at the end of this thing was just baffling to me. They're down 13-3. They kick a field goal with under 2 minutes to go. They have 1 timeout. So naturally, you think they're going to kick an onside kick. They don't do that, and then they only have like 15 seconds left at the end of the game, and they don't even have a chance to get into the end zone. So the Broncos are 0-2, which is not a surprise. The Steelers have played really 2 bad offenses so far this season. The Falcons were just disappointing, and maybe we're just overrating Kirk Cousins a little bit. But I'm not surprised the Steelers won this game. I'm surprised that they've scored 31 points in 2 games this season, have 1 touchdown, and somehow they are 2-0 at the top of this division, which I think is the best division in football with 2 playoff teams from last year. The Bengals would have made the playoffs last year if Joe Burrow were healthy. So for the Steelers to be at the top of this division with the guy who was projected to be their backup in Justin Fields and only having 1 touchdown, that's insane to me. That is insane. So that's the AFC North in terms of the proportion of the Cleveland Browns. Let's run through the rest of these games. Let's talk about the team that the Browns got destroyed by last week in the Dallas Cowboys. I kind of saw this coming, that maybe they might be primed for a letdown in their home opener against the New Orleans Saints. I didn't expect 44-19. Alvin Kamara, almost 200 yards of total offense, 4 touchdowns. Derek Carr doesn't have to throw many complete passes, but he has a big game for them. Dak Prescott with his new contract throws 2 interceptions. This was a clunker. This was bad for the Cowboys. Losing 44-19 on your own field. And maybe I'm underrating the Saints. I still don't know. Dennis Allen really hasn't proven that he can win at that high of a level. Derek Carr has kind of middle of the road. But hey, they're 2-0, man, and they've put up a ton of points, back-to-back 40-point games. Yes, one of them was against the Carolina Panthers, and the Carolina Panthers are the worst team in the NFL. Let's call it what it is. But this was an impressive win for the New Orleans Saints. Another Cleveland Brown tie-in. Leave it. The whole world seems to revolve around the Cleveland Browns, which is ironic for this show. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and former Browns #1 pick and the only Browns quarterback in the last 2 decades to win a playoff game, Baker Mayfield, are 2-0. They go to Detroit, beat the Lions 20-16. Baker Mayfield scores a rushing touchdown at the end of the third quarter. That ultimately decided the game. The Bucs hold off the Lions offense near the end. Jared Goff threw for 300 yards but didn't have a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs had a good game. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a good game. He got hurt near the end of it. And yeah, the Lions lose at home. Listen, go watch the video that I said I'm sick and tired of this Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, revisionist history that goes on within the Browns fan base. I got to say, I'm proud of Baker. I no hard feelings. It wasn't working. It got really bad near the end. He was hurt, but the Browns were at this really hard point where they were like, you can't pay the guy. And they kind of burned a bridge. They kind of, signaled that they were going to move off of him. They were meeting with Deshaun Watson. And I think Baker ultimately saying, yeah, I'm leaving, kind of forced the Browns' hand to the point, we've got to panic and we've got to do something. And ultimately, they just picked the wrong guy. I think they were right to move off of Baker Mayfield. I'm very happy for Baker Mayfield. But let's not act like this guy didn't bomb out in the place that he started off in Carolina. I know Carolina's not a well-run organization, but Baker flamed out in one spot. He ended up going to the Rams, and that gave him this opportunity with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have a great structure, great coaching staff. Say what you will about Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles knows how to coach, and they've figured it out with Baker. And yeah, this wasn't pretty. He didn't throw for very many yards in this game, but they get it done. They're 2-0. But I'm not going to have it with people who are going to just be like I don't like Deshaun Watson any more than a lot of you do. I think it just comes down to, this wasn't going to be like, oh, is it Baker or Deshaun? It's just, yeah, they had to move off of Baker Mayfield, but Deshaun was the wrong guy. They panicked. You can see by the contract. You can see by the picks. They got hoodwinked. If there's an out for them to get out of it, they'll get out of it. And here's hoping. Let's go rapid fire here really quickly. The Packers beat the Colts 16-10. Malik Willis looked okay. I mean, credit to Matt LaFleur for kind of revamping his offense without Jordan Love. Josh Jacobs runs for 150 yards in this game. And it just comes down to Anthony Richardson was bad in this game. And it's the whole Anthony Richardson experience. This guy's got all the physical gifts in the world, but he is so inconsistent. And if this is ever going to work with the Colts, he has got to cut down on these turnovers. 3 turnovers in this game. And it just comes down to, hey, the Packers, in a defensive kind of slugfest, only score 16 points, only really get the one. I think they had 2 touchdowns. So they had the Dontavian Wicks touchdown, and they might have kicked 3 field goals in this game. But credit to Malik Willis, man. He literally only been there for a couple weeks, and he comes in there, manages the game, and they win it. And this is more of a testament to the Packers and their coaching staff and the culture that they've built there. With those young pieces to get this win without their star quarterback. So that's a big win for them. Former Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers. This was a much more competitive game than it needed to be. The Jets win 24-17. Will Levis once again. If you want to talk about experiences, this guy has found a way to have 2 of the worst turnovers that I've ever seen in my life. He threw a weird no-look interception last week that almost effectively cost them the game against the Chicago Bears. He then tries to do a weird lateral thing that leads to a fumble and a recovery by the Jets. Aaron Rodgers was fine, 176 yards, 2 touchdowns. Breece Hall had a huge game, 100 yards total offense and 1 TD. Braylon Allen, youngest player in the NFL, goes out and has 2 touchdowns in this game, so that's a big deal. And the Jets win 24-17, so they get off the mat, short week. After losing to San Francisco, and so they're 1-1, and we'll see where this thing is with Aaron Rodgers over the course of the season. I don't really believe in Robert Saleh that much. There's a lot of talent on this Jets roster, and and we'll see how healthy Aaron Rodgers is going into like his late 30s, early 40s now, and see if he's actually kind of really like focused on football. But this is a nice little win for the Jets. Granted, it shouldn't have been. The Titans are one of the worst teams in the league. It shouldn't have been this competitive, but they get the win. Vikings beat the 49ers. The 49ers did beat the Jets on that Monday night game, but I got to hand it to the Vikings, man. They're 2-0. Kevin O'Connell does not get nearly enough credit for how great of a coach he is. Sam Darnold, man, has been fucking awesome for this team. 17 of 26, 268, 2 touchdowns. He had a bad interception. Obviously has the play that everybody's talking about this week, the 97-yard touchdown to Justin Jefferson. And yeah, the Vikes win this game 23-17. Jordan Mace, the 49ers look like they're going to be out without Christian McCaffrey for a while. Brock Purdy, 300 yards passing. Did have one interception. Jordan Mason ran for 100 yards. But it wasn't enough for the Niners, man. Like, this team is weird, man. They're so effing talented. But I was a little bit fearful of this, that maybe they could walk in, and I was reminded of myself of what happened when they went to Minnesota on a Monday night. And I think Josh Dobbs might have been the quarterback of that team, and Minnesota won. But credit to the Vikings, man, and Kevin O'Connell, because they lose their future quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. They obviously had to switch quarterbacks with Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta. So J.J. McCarthy's out for the year. And Sam Darnold's come in there, man, and he's been a journeyman. I remember when he was high profile. By the way, Colin Cowherd will never shut up about this because Sam Darnold's his guy. I wanted the Browns to draft Sam Darnold in 2018 before they drafted Baker Mayfield. I know the talent's there, but this is what happens when you put a quarterback with raw gifts with a really good quarterback, like, coach. And Kevin O'Connell is as good as anybody at coaching quarterbacks. And he's a fantastic head coach too. So Vikings are 2-0. Speaking of being 2-0, Seahawks to 2-0 with their new coach, Mike McDonald. They win on the road in New England. This was a fun game. The Seahawks kick a field goal in overtime. Geno Smith goes for 300 yards. DK Metcalf has a monster game as well. Zach Charbonnet, nice to see him doing pretty well. Former UCLA product, getting involved. But yeah, Seahawks, same, a lot of the same pieces that they just have a different voice, and they're a much younger voice than Pete Carroll, and they're 2-0. But I gotta hand it to the Patriots. Gerard Mayo, everybody thinks that this team's gonna be bad. I think this Patriots team is gonna compete a lot this year, as evidenced by going to Cincinnati and getting that win in Week 1. This was a very competitive game, very fun, and the Seahawks win in overtime. Speaking of a weird game, and Chris Berman dubbed this the blackjack game. Commanders win 21-18 over the Giants. The Giants had this weird situation where Graham Gano, their kicker, gets hurt on the opening kickoff, so they don't have a kicker for the rest of the game. They scored 2 touchdowns, have to go for 2 on them. That leads to the weird number there. And the Commanders don't score a touchdown in this game. They don't score a touchdown. They kick 7 field goals. The last one, Austin Seibert, former Brown kicker and draft pick, by the way, kicks 7 field goals for the Commanders, and they win. Jaden Daniels is a winner in the NFL, and good for Dan Quinn as well. Daniel Jones was fine in this game. Malik Neighbors looked really good with 10 catches for 127 yards. Brian Robinson was awesome for the Commanders, 133 yards rushing. But yeah, this was the definition of just a weird, bizarre game. And I've said this in Week 1. A couple of these things happen where if you're a team that loses to a team that doesn't score a touchdown or an offensive touchdown, that's bad. And the Giants are a bad team. So that doesn't surprise me that the Giants lost this game. But man, 7 field goals, you lose to that. That's pretty pathetic. Speaking of pathetic, let's talk about the Carolina Panthers. Because thank God for the Carolina Panthers. Because if not for the Carolina Panthers, the Browns might have had the worst QB decision of all time. They may still have that because of all the money invested in Deshaun Watson. But the Carolina Panthers lose 26-3 to the Chargers. J.K. Dobbins was awesome in this game. Justin Herbert only had to throw for 130 yards. J.K. Dobbins 131 yards, 1 touchdown. He's been fantastic since and now in his new role as the lead running back for the Chargers. Quentin Johnston, who couldn't catch the ball last year, had 2 touchdowns in this game. But what this comes down to is Bryce Young is just not it. David Tepper is just, thank God for him, because otherwise Jimmy Haslam would be the worst owner in football. This organization made a decision a couple years ago to trade up to number 1 with the Chicago Bears. And they chose to take Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud. And we can already see that that was a terrible decision. And then the pick that they gave up, because they gave up another one to do that, ended up being Caleb Williams. This is shaping up to be one of the worst decisions ever. And maybe one of the worst busts ever. I liked Bryce Young in college, but there were signs there that this was not going to work in the NFL. He is way too skinny, way too small. And the Panthers organization has no effing idea how to build a roster. This roster is not good. You've got an over-the-hill Adam Thielen as one of your lead receivers. You've got Miles Sanders, who can't stay healthy or hang on to the ball, as your lead running back. Like, they're not helping Bryce Young, but at the same time, you chose Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud, and you also gave up the right to draft Caleb Williams in the process. So, all-time baffling decision from the Carolina Panthers. Chargers are at 2-0. No surprise. Jim Harbaugh, all he does is win. Cardinals beat the Rams. Absolutely destroy them. Cooper Kupp got hurt. The Rams are already beat up as it is. I feel bad for Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. These guys are winners. This is shaping up to be a bad season for the Rams, potentially, if they don't start to figure it out very quickly, and the injuries are really hurting them right now. But Kyler Murray looks like he's the old Kyler Murray. 3 touchdowns, 266 yards. James Conner, 122 yards and a touchdown. And Marvin Harrison Jr., Maserati Marv, as Gus Johnson calls him. 4 catches, 130 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He didn't do anything last week. I think that game was an outlier. It was an anomaly. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be fantastic this year. And I would not want to fuck around with the Cardinals this year, man. Like, that team is scary. I would not want to fuck around with them at all. And then, obviously, the Sunday night game, Bears-Texans, the aforementioned, the Carolina Panthers, misery game, if you want to call it that. Texans win a slugfest 19-13, and really, the story of this game was, obviously, the Texans are awesome. C.J. Stroud is just so effing good. Goes for 260 and a touchdown. It wasn't easy. They had some mistakes, but yeah, Caleb Williams, I love him, man. This is gonna be a hard year for him. I went out on a limb and said the Bears are gonna go to the playoffs. I don't trust this coaching staff. The play calling was bad. The offensive line play was bad. Matt Eberflus is already on a very hot seat. They got lucky that they beat Tennessee because Tennessee just self-destructed at the end of that game. But Caleb Williams had no chance whatsoever in this game. He got sacked 7 times. 7 times. He threw 2 interceptions. It's just it was amazing because the Bears defense played their fucking asses off for a large chunk of this game to even make it a 6-point game near the back half of this. But there were some weird challenges from Matt Eberflus. The play calling from Shane Waldron, their offensive coordinator, was not great. The offensive line play was terrible, as evidenced by the 7 sacks. And it's just Caleb Williams will have better days in the NFL, but I feel like this is going to be a sign of things to come this year, especially if they don't figure out how to protect this guy. Because Caleb Williams cannot put the cape on and just rescue this team, as evidenced by what happened at USC last year. It's kind of amazing how this is starting to look kind of a little bit like USC, with the exception of the fact that USC didn't have a defense. At least the Bears have a defense and made this relatively competitive. So anyway, that's NFL Week 2. Browns thoughts here, just overall big picture. If you're a Browns fan that really, honest to God, believes that Deshaun Watson is the savior of this team, just shut the fuck up. Seriously, get over yourself. 14 games in 3 years, the evidence is there, and if you're celebrating a sub 200-yard passing game with 1 touchdown and 18 points and 5 in the second half, you're delusional if you think that this guy is the answer at quarterback for this team. I really hope that at some point the NFL just steps in and just suspends him, and then the Browns just cut bait and just go to Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, by the way, before we get out of here, one of the sneaky good parts about this game was the 4th down sneak package with Jameis Winston as quarterback. He got 2 first downs, and then as a wrinkle out of it, he pitches it back to Jerome Ford for like a 35-yard run. At some point, Jameis Winston might be in that package. Like, he might just drop back and just throw one up. I wouldn't put it past him. That was one of their best offensive things that they did in this game. So, and who knows, Jameis Winston might be the starting quarterback by week 5 or 6 because Deshaun Watson, I think, is going to get suspended. So, but yeah, Browns are 1-1. We'll see how the week goes. Obviously, it'll be a victory Monday for a lot of you crazy Browns fans, but there's a lot to fix. And so, yeah, enjoy Eagles-Falcons. I think the Eagles are going to destroy the Falcons. Kirk Cousins in primetime, need I say more? And the Falcons just did not look good against the Steelers in week 1. So, that being said, the Eagles were lucky to get out of Brazil with the win. So, but they've had a lot of time to prepare for this game. So, yeah, that's the show. A lot of great content, wrestling, sports, you name it, anything on this channel. The perfect blend between sports and sports entertainment here on the Off the Mic Sports Network. Like, share, and subscribe. Appreciate all the love and support. The growth in this channel since we rebranded has been insane. Thank you so much for all the support. Love you guys, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.